The rain hammered the stained-glass windows of St. Agnes Cathedral like it was trying to drown out the organ's mournful swell. But nothing could bury the gasp that ripped from Joshua's throat when he flipped open the funeral program. There, sandwiched between the obituary's sterile facts and a grainy photo of Caleb's crooked smile, God. That smile, the one that used to light up dingy dive bars in Boston, was a single paragraph titled, "The Love That Shaped Him." It wasn't signed, but Joshua knew the voice behind those words like a scar across his ribs. Their story, raw and resurrected, spilling onto the page after 15 years of silence. He'd come to Chicago on a red-eye from Seattle, telling himself it was closure, or curiosity, or just the pull of an old friend's text. Caleb's gone. Car wreck on I-90. Service tomorrow. You should be there. Joshua hadn't replied, just booked the ticket and stared at the ceiling until dawn, the ghost of Caleb's laugh echoing in the empty apartment he'd built without him. Now, crammed into a pew near the back, flanked by strangers in black who murmured condolences like scripted lines from a bad indie flick, Joshua felt the program's glossy paper crumple in his fist. The words blurred through hot tears he hadn't shed since the night Caleb walked out. Caleb found his fire in the arms of a boy from Dorchester, the one who taught him to chase sunsets over the Charles River and whisper dreams into payphone receivers. They were young, reckless, unbreakable until life cracked them open. Joshua's pulse thundered in his ears, louder than the priest's drone about eternal rest. Unbreakable? That lie burned hotter than the betrayal that had shattered them. He scanned the crowd, half expecting Caleb to saunter in late, all easy charm and that infuriating wink. But the casket gleamed empty up front, a polished mahogany lie under lilies that smelled like regret. 15 years. Joshua had rebuilt, a graphic design gig in the PNW, a string of forgettable dates, a cat named Whiskey who judged him from the windowsill. He'd never spoken Caleb's name aloud, not to therapists, not to the one-night stands who asked why his eyes went distant mid-kiss. Exes are landmines, he'd say with a shrug, American as apple pie and denial. But here, in this echoey nave that reeked of incense and Midwestern damp, the past clawed its way back, demanding a reckoning. The hook sank deeper when the priest called for remembrances. A sister Joshua vaguely recalled, Lila, with Caleb's eyes but none of his fire, stepped to the podium, her voice cracking like thin ice. Caleb was everything to us. But he had this one love, back in college, that he carried like a secret flame. It broke him when it ended, but it made him who he was, the fighter, the dreamer. The congregation nodded, oblivious vultures picking at the carcass of a life they thought they knew. Joshua's stomach twisted. He wanted to bolt, but his legs were lead, pinned by the weight of what-ifs. What if he'd fought harder that rainy night in the dorm? What if the betrayal had been a test instead of a tombstone? As Lila stepped down, folding a tissue into her palm, Joshua's gaze snagged on a man in the front row, tall, silver-threaded hair, suit too sharp for grief. Mark. The name hit like a sucker punch. Caleb's best friend, from the program notes, the one who'd introduced them at that frat party in '09, all bro hugs and beer pong. But Mark had been more. The shadow that loomed when Caleb started pulling away. Late nights at the gym that stretched into dawn. Whispers Joshua pretended not to hear. Betrayal wasn't just leaving. It was the slow poison of secrets. The way Caleb's touches grew mechanical, his eyes darting like he was already gone. Joshua had confronted him once, In the dim glow of their shared studio apartment off Beacon Street, the Charles River churning black outside. Who's he? Cal? This project partner, who's got you smiling at your phone like it's Christmas. Caleb had frozen, then deflated, mumbling about just friends before the door slammed, leaving Joshua with the echo of his own sob. Now, Mark turned, as if sensing the heat of Joshua's stare, and their eyes locked across the sea of bowed heads. Recognition flickered, then something sharper, guilt, pity. Joshua's jaw clenched. He wouldn't break first. Not here. Not with Caleb's ashes waiting to scatter over Lake Michigan like forgotten confetti. The organ swelled again, signaling the recessional, and Joshua rose on numb feet, program clutched like a grenade. He slipped into the aisle, weaving toward the side exit, but Lila intercepted him, her hand light on his arm. "You came," she said, voice thick. He hoped you might." Joshua swallowed the lump in his throat, tasting bile and bourbon from the airport bar. "I didn't know," he lied, the American way, polite deflection, heart bleeding under starched collars. But as she pressed a folded note into his palm, "Read this after." For the stories we couldn't tell, he knew the dam was cracking. The funeral spilled into the vestibule, mourners clustering like storm clouds, and Joshua caught Mark's approach in his periphery. No running now. The rain outside had eased to a drizzle, misting the windy city's gray spires, but inside, the storm was just beginning. They ended up in a corner by the holy water font, the air heavy with wet wool and whispered prayers. Mark extended a hand, calloused from years of construction gigs Caleb used to mock. "Josh." "Been a long time." His voice was gravel, laced with that South Side accent that used to grate but now just ached. Joshua shook it, grip firm enough to bruise. "Yeah. Funeral's a hell of a reunion spot." Mark winced, glancing at the program in Joshua's fist. "You saw it." "The tribute." Lila wrote it, insisted on including. "You know," Joshua barked a laugh, bitter as black coffee. "Our epic romance? Real cute, Mark. Like we're characters in some Hallmark tearjerker." But Mark didn't flinch. "It was epic, man. To him, anyway. After you left, after it ended, he talked about you nonstop at first. How you saw the stars in his bullshit poetry. How you drag him to those indie gigs in Alston where the band sucked but the vibe was electric." Joshua's chest tightened. Memories flooded unbidden, them tangled in thrift store sheets, Caleb's breath hot against his neck, murmuring "I love you" like a vow under the hum of the L train. Then why'd he torch it? "For you." The accusation hung, ugly and true. Mark's face crumpled, not in defense, but defeat. "It wasn't like that. Not at first. I was just there. When he was spiraling, after his folks cut him off for coming out. You were buried in finals. That internship in New York." "Stop," Joshua hissed, voice low to dodge the eavesdroppers. "Don't rewrite history. I was there, every night, holding him when the world said we were wrong." Mark nodded, eyes downcast. "I know. And I hated myself for it. But Caleb, he chose the easy out. Meant he didn't have to fight for us, for you." The word "us" twisted like a knife. There'd been no us after, just echoes. Joshua backed away, the note burning in his pocket. "Tell Lila thanks for the invite to the wake." "But I'm out." He pushed through the doors into the chill November air. the city exhaling exhaust and fried dough from corner vendors. Seattle felt a world away, but so did Boston, that crucible where love had forged and fractured them. He walked aimlessly, Lake Street's honking cabs a blur, until he ducked into a dive called O'Malley's, neon shamrocks flickering like false hopes. 2 whiskeys in. The note unfolded on the scarred bar top. Josh, if you're reading this, I'm sorry doesn't cut it. But the stories do. Start with the river. Remember the bridge? That's where it began. And maybe where it ends. Love always, Cal. Joshua's vision swam, not from the booze but the pull of that memory, the Harvard Bridge. Summer '09. Fireflies dancing like drunk souls. Caleb's hand slipping into his for the first time. Hey, city boy. Caleb had grinned, fresh off the farm from rural Illinois, all wide eyes and wider dreams. "Want to make a wish?" Joshua had laughed, heart slamming, and wished for forever. But forever's cracked. As the bartender slid him another round, Joshua traced the program's edge. The photo of Caleb staring back, older, lines etched from laughs and losses. The betrayal replayed in fragments. The text messages glimpsed on Caleb's phone. "Miss you tonight," from Mark. The fights that escalated from whispers to screams. Joshua begging, "Fight for us." Damn it. Caleb's silence. Then the suitcase by the door. "I can't breathe here anymore," he'd said, eyes dull as the Charles in winter. Joshua had let him go, pride his only armor, driving west until the ocean swallowed the skyline. Now, with Caleb's ink drying on that note, the what-ifs morphed into whys. Why show up now? In death's cold script? Why drag the corpse of their love into the light? Joshua paid his tab, stepping back into the dusk where street lamps bloomed like bruises. The wake was at Lila's, a bungalow in Pilsen with murals splashed across brick. Vibrant, alive, everything Caleb had chased. He shouldn't go. But the river called, that bridge a siren's song across the miles. Chicago's pulse thrummed under his boots, jazz spilling from lofts, the distant wail of sirens, the American dream in all its gritty glory, love as fleeting as a cub's win. The L rattled overhead like a mechanical heartbeat as Joshua trudged toward the blue line, the funeral's damp chill seeping into his bones. Pilsen wasn't far, but every block felt like dredging the past. Murals of Aztec warriors and lowriders eyeing him like judgmental ancestors. Caleb had loved this neighborhood. Its chaos, the Ticarius slinging al pastor that burned going down like truths you weren't ready for. "This is real America," he'd say, grease on his chin, arms slung around Joshua's waist as they wandered after gigs at the Empty Bottle. Joshua had rolled his eyes then, city slick from Philly suburbs, but Caleb's passion was infectious, a fever that made dive bar arguments feel like foreplay. He transferred at Clark/Lake, the platform a crush of commuters bundled against the wind off the loop, briefcases swinging like pendulums. A guy in a Bears beanie bumped him, muttering sorry, man, and Joshua nodded absently, mind replaying the note's curve of handwriting, the bridge. Not Harvard's, but this city's version. The one over the Chicago River where they'd crashed a 4th of July barbecue in 12, post-breakup, when just friends was the lie they both swallowed. Caleb had shown up buzzed on PBR, Mark in tow, and Joshua had watched from across the crowd as they laughed too close, fireworks exploding overhead like accusations. "You moved on quick," he'd texted later, alone in his sublet, and Caleb's reply, "Life's short, Josh. Gotta live it." had gutted him deeper than any blade. The train lurched south, graffiti-streaked cars flashing by, and Joshua pulled out his phone, thumb hovering over Lila's address. Delete, redial, delete, the cycle of a man who'd ghosted his own heart. 15 years. He'd climbed corporate ladders in Seattle's tech boom, pixels his lovers, deadlines his forevers. Dates came and went, Ethan the barista with the tattooed quotes, Ryan the lawyer who quoted Whitman but ghosted after Joshua mentioned baggage. You're a vault, Ryan had said, kind but cutting. Unlock or lose. Joshua had chosen the lockpick of silence, burying Caleb in the vault with his dad's old jazz records and the Polaroid of them at Fenway. Red socks and redder cheeks. Pilsen Station spat him out onto 18th Street, the air thick with cumin and mariachi strains from a corner cantina. Lila's bungalow crouched at the end of a block strung with papal picado, porch light haloed in fog. Cars lined the curb, Fords and Subarus, a testament to the eclectic grief inside. Joshua paused at the chain-link gate, the program's photo peeking from his pocket like a guilty secret. Go home, his brain whispered, but his feet betrayed him, climbing steps worn smooth by generations. The door swung open before he knocked, Lila's silhouette framed in warm lamplight, eyes puffy but sharp. Josh, not a question, just fact. She pulled him into a hug that smelled of lavender and loss, her frame bird-fragile against his. I'm glad. We all talked about you, you know. After, Joshua stiffened, extricating gently. The program. That was bold. Lila's laugh was a hiccup, ushering him into the living room where mourners clustered around platters of empanadas and Jell-O salads. Midwest comfort in ethnic fusion. Bold? Try therapy mandated. Cal left letters, stories. Insisted we share if. Well, she trailed off, nodding toward a coffee table altar. Caleb's photo ringed by candles. Cub's hat, a dog-eared copy of On the Road. Joshua's throat closed. Kerouac had been their Bible. Road trips plotted on napkins between classes. The room hummed with low chatter, cousins swapping farm tales from Illinois flatlands, an ex-bandmate nursing a solo cup, Mark holding court by the stereo with tales of Caleb's wilder days. Their eyes met again, a current snapping across the space. Joshua looked away, beelining for the kitchen where Lila pressed a beer into his hand. Goose Island, Caleb's favorite. Read the letter yet? She asked, casual as refilling chips. Joshua nodded, lie sticking. The bridge thing, it's code. For your spot. Where he proposed that ridiculous pact. Heat flushed his neck. The pact, summer 10, sprawled on a picnic blanket by the river, fireflies winking like co-conspirators. If we make it through med school and your art shows, we run away. California coast. No regrets. Caleb's pinky swear, solemn as a vow. Joshua had believed it, hook and sinker. Voices swelled from the living room, laughter cutting the grief like sunlight through clouds. Joshua drifted back, snagging a spot on the sagging couch, the leather creaking under him like judgment. A woman with Caleb's jawline, cousin? Aunt? Leaned in, eyes curious. You were the college boyfriend, right? Cal mentioned you once. Drunk at Thanksgiving. Said you had the laugh that started wars. The room tilted. Joshua forced a smile. American charm on autopilot. Guilty. We were kids, but kids didn't carve initials into oak trees by the river. Didn't fuck with the windows open to the harbor fog. Bodies slick and souls bared. Mark sidled up then, plate balanced with tamales, settling too close on the armrest. Mind if I join the ex's club? Joshua's grip tightened on the bottle. Condensation slick as sweat. Plenty of seats. Mark chuckled, low and rueful. Fair. Look, I didn't write the tribute. But it's true Cal never got over you. Even after me, after the others. The word landed like shrapnel. Joshua had imagined them in flashes, faceless bodies in the sheets he'd washed from his life. Must have been comforting, being the rebound. Mark's face shadowed. I was the mistake. He proposed to Sarah in 15, thought it was what folks wanted. Divorced by 18. Said it was like wearing someone else's skin. Joshua's beer soured on his tongue. Caleb, married, the image clawed white tux. Vows choked out for show, while his heart rotted in the closet. Humanistic America. Progress on screens, prejudice in pews. And you? Played white knight. Mark shrugged, vulnerability cracking his facade. Loved him wrong. Pushed too hard. When he came out fully, post-divorce, it was like watching a phoenix, fierce, but the burns. He gestured vaguely at the altar. Joshua's empathy warred with rage. Betrayal wasn't abstract. It was the empty side of the bed, the unanswered calls. Why tell me now? To absolve your sins at his wake. Mark leaned in, voice a confessional murmur. Because the letter, he left one for you too. In the program, page folded back. Read it before you hate me forever. Joshua's hand flew to his pocket, the paper crackling like thunder. He excused himself, slipping out the back door to the postage stamp yard, chain link rattling in the breeze. The air bit crisp, stars pricking the city haze. Unfolding the hidden flap. Josh, if you're here, it's because I finally shut up. The pact, I broke it first. Betrayed us for fear. Dad's voice in my head, saying we'd burn in hell. Mark was safe, straight passing. But you were home. Forgive? Not. Just know I loved you electric. Scatter me by the river. Your Cal. Tears hit the page, smudging ink. Electric. Their word for the spark. The way touches ignited like live wires. Joshua sank to the dew-wet grass. The bungalow's laughter a distant roar. Betrayal reframed. Not malice, but cowardice. The kind America bred in farm boys dreaming too big. He thought of his own scars. The hookup in Seattle who'd bolted at I love you. The boss who jokingly outed him at the holiday party. Love as lightning rod. Drawing storms. Footsteps crunched. Lila. Blanket draped over shoulders. Heavy reeds. She sat beside him, hip to hip. He was messy, Cal. But good. Wanted you to know that. Joshua wiped his face, voice rough. Why the reveal? After all this time, Lila smiled, sad sweet. Human stuff. He wrote it last year, after the diagnosis, liver from the drinking. Said if he kicked it, you'd deserve the truth. No more vaults. Joshua's laugh broke. Diagnosis? The wreck was mercy. Then quick. Not the slow erode of chemo suites. He always was dramatic. They talked then. Words tumbling like dominoes. Caleb's post-Joshua spiral. The queer youth center he founded in Pilsen. Mentoring kids with stories like theirs, out and proud in the heartland. Betrayal's ripple. Joshua's art stalled for years, safe corporate gigs over risky galleries. But humanistic core, forgiveness not as erasure, but evolution. Stay for the scattering? Lila asked. Joshua nodded, the river pulling like tide. Inside, Mark raised a glass as he re-entered. Toast slurred but sincere, to Cal, and the loves that linger. Joshua clinked, bitterness ebbing to bittersweet. Dawn crept as the wake wound down, mourners peeling off into Ubers, leaving takeout containers and half-empty bottles. Joshua crashed on Lila's couch. Dreams a montage. Caleb's hand in his under bridge lights, Mark's shadow fading, the pact reborn in whispers. Morning brought coffee black as resolve, and the drive north to the river, Wrigley hum in the distance. Lake Michigan's vast blue winking promise. The Chicago River snaked like a vein through the city's concrete heart, steel bridges arching like prayers unanswered. Joshua gripped the urn Lila had thrust into his hands. Cool pewter, engraved Caleb James Harlan, beloved wanderer, as their caravan idled on Wacker Drive, traffic a snarl of horns and hurried lives. It was the kind of crisp fall morning that begged for hoodies and hot cider, not scattering a ghost's remains. But America marched on, joggers in Lululemon pounding pavement, baristas hawking $7 lattes from trucks painted like dreams deferred. Lila rode shotgun in Joshua's rental Chevy. Map app open to their spot, the fork where the river bent lazy under the Kinsey Street Bridge, hidden from tourists but etched in Caleb's lore as our sanctuary. You good? Lila asked, voice soft over the radio's murmur of NPR, some segment on queer icons in the Windy City. Ironic underscore. Joshua's knuckles whitened on the wheel. Define good. Dumping your brother's ashes while replaying his greatest hits. She chuckled, but it died quick. He'd say it's poetic. Like that Kerouac line, the road is life. Joshua snorted. Cal always romanticized the mess. Truth, though, their love had been a Steinbeck novel, dusty highways from Boston to the Cape. Radio blasting Springsteen, hands intertwined over stick shifts. Betrayal had been the plot twist, the Jodes scattering when the dust hit. They parked near a chain-link overlook, the group spilling out, Lila, a handful of center kids with rainbow pins glinting, Mark trailing with a cooler of beers. For toasts, he'd muttered, eyes avoiding Joshua's. The air hummed electric, wind whipping jackets, the river below churning brown under freighters laden with Midwestern bounty. Joshua climbed the chain link like it was Everest, urn tucked under arm, the others fanning behind. Up top, graffiti scarred the railings. Fuck the police. Love wins. Testaments to fights won and lost. Caleb would have added his own hearts break free. Lila nodded, and Joshua unscrewed the lid, gray dust peeking like secrets. He wrote what to say? She prompted. Joshua unfolded the note again, voice steadying against the gusts. Scatter me where the water meets the wild. Tell the stories, the good, the gut punch. And Josh, dance like no one's watching. Laughter rippled. One kid, a lanky teen with blue streaks, yelling, "To the Wanderer," as Joshua tilted the urn. Ashes swirled on the breeze, silver motes catching sun, drifting to merge with the current. It was beautiful, brutal, love's end as nature's shrug. Mark cracked beers, foam hissing like suppressed sobs, passing them down the line. To Cal, he said, clinking Joshua's. No edge this time, just shared ache. Joshua sipped, the IPA bitter sharp. He ever mention the pact? Post. Everything. Mark nodded, leaning on the rail. Once. Drunk on his birthday. 16. Said he kept the blanket, the picnic one, buried in his closet like a relic. Joshua's chest hollowed. He'd burned his half. Flames eating corduroy in a Philly alley. Catharsis tasting like ash. Idiot, he muttered, affectionate. Mark's gaze softened. You both were. But that's love, right? American as all get out. Messy. Mythic. The kids chimed in then. Stories tumbling like dice. Caleb coaching dodgeball with flair. Turning PE into pride parades. Late-night drives blasting Chapel Roan. Windows down. Voices up. Joshua listened. Outsider no more. The circle widening to include him. Betrayal scar itched less in this light, human flaw, not fatal. One girl, Mia, with tattoos of semicolons curling her wrists, cornered him. He said you were his muse. Sketched you in margins. Even after. Joshua blinked. Tears pricking. Doodler. Yeah. Never shared. Mia grinned. Check the center. He left originals. Framed. In the lobby. Lila herded them back as clouds gathered. Promising rain. Lunch? Julasco subs. Cal's guilty pleasure. Joshua demurred. Citing the flight. But she pinned him with those Harlan eyes. Stay. One more day. The stories aren't done. He caved. The rivers murmur a siren's hook. They reconvened at the center, a converted warehouse in Ukrainian village. Walls splashed with murals of intertwined hands. Flags from every pride on the spectrum. Inside, the air thrummed with youth. Ping-pong tables scarred from tournaments. A library nook stacked with Baldwin and hooks. A pride flag drooping lazy from the rafters. Mark lingered by the door as they toured, pointing out Caleb's touches, the coffee bar named Cal's Brouhaha, the mural he'd spearheaded of Stonewall rebels reimagined as Chicago icons. He built this after the divorce, Mark said quietly, when the kids scattered. Said it was penance. For not fighting sooner, for us. For you. Joshua traced a painted fist. Raised and rainbow-veined. Penance implies debt. We were even. But the lie soured. Debt lingered in the loves he'd half-given since. The walls he'd bricked higher. They settled in the lounge. Circle of mismatched chairs. Lila passing printouts. Caleb's greatest hits. A zine of anecdotes solicited from friends. Joshua's page. The night of 1,000 stars, Josh and Cal on the common. Telescope borrowed from the planetarium. Mapping constellations till dawn. He said you named a star after him. Arcturus's jealous cousin. Laughter bubbled as they read aloud. Voices overlapping in chaotic harmony. Mark's turn. The betrayal blues, Cal's worst gig, fumbling chords at an open mic because his heart was elsewhere. Josh forgave the off notes. I couldn't. Joshua's jaw ticked, but he raised his sub. To off notes. Music's better with M. Afternoon bled to evening, the center emptying to after-school rush. Lila pulled Joshua aside. Into Caleb's office, a closet of a space with posters curling at edges. A desk buried in grant apps. This is yours if you want it, she said, sliding a sketchbook across. Joshua's breath hitched, pages thick with him, eyes crinkled in mirth, jaw set in sleep, the curve of his shoulder under moonlight. He never stopped, Lila whispered. Even when he hurt you, Joshua flipped, fingers trembling, landing on a full spread, them on the bridge, hands linked, river below like liquid time. Inked below, electric forever. Betrayal refracted here. Not villainy but vulnerability, Caleb's internalized storms. Farm-raised fears clashing with city freedoms. Joshua closed the book. Resolve hardening. I'll digitize them. For the kids. Lila hugged him fierce. Stay tonight? Guest room's yours. He nodded. The zine's weight in his lap a bridge to tomorrow. Night fell heavy. City lights pulsing through blinds. Joshua lay awake. Sketchbook open on his chest. Memories unspooling. First fight. Over Caleb's closet door ajar during family visit. Dad spotting the pride sticker. What is this shit? The old man bellowed over Skype. Caleb crumpling while Joshua held him, whispering you're enough. The makeup sex after. Desperate and devotional. Bodies mapping apologies. Then the drift. Mark's easy grins. Caleb's late shifts at the bar. Confrontation in the rain-slick alley behind the apartment. Choose. Cal. Us or the lie. Caleb's tears mixing with downpour. I can't lose them. Betrayal's birth. Not thunder but whimper. A knock soft. Hesitant. Mark. In sweats. Thermos in hand. Hot cocoa? Cal's recipe. Marshmallows mandatory. Joshua waved him in. Floorboards creaking under weight. They sat cross-legged like undergrads. Steam curling between. Didn't peg you for insomniac, Joshua said. Mark shrugged. Guilt's a bitch. Wanted to say the tribute? It was his words. Mostly. Dictated from the hospital. Joshua's gut twisted. Diagnosis long? Mark nodded. 6 months. Rec was. Escape. Silence stretched. Companionable now. I loved him, Mark admitted. But not like you. You were the thunder. I was the shelter. Joshua sipped. Chocolate rich as confession. Shelter failed. Mark's eyes gleamed. So rebuild. For him. Dawn hinted as they talked. Raw. Unfiltered. Mark's own coming out at 40. Caleb's pride in the center's first marriage equality bake sale. Human threads weaving betrayal's fray into tapestry. Joshua slept then. Dreamless. Waking to Lila's pancakes and a flight he wouldn't take. The second day in Chicago unfolded like a jazz riff. Improvised. Aching with blue notes. But swinging toward hope. Joshua canceled his return. Citing loose ends. But really it was the sketchbook's gravity. Pages fanning under his fingers like a deck of tarots foretelling redemption. Lila drove them to the center again. Radio tuned to WXRT's morning mix. Springsteen crooning Thunder Road. A gut-punch serendipity that had them belting choruses off-key. Cal would have cranked this, Lila said. Drumming the dash. Joshua grinned. Wind tousling his hair through the cracked window. And dragged me dancing on the hood. Public indecency be damned. The center buzzed busier now. School groups trickling in for workshops. Queer History 101. A teen scrawling on a whiteboard. Mia waved from the desk. Blue hair a beacon. New guys got you volunteering? She teased. Handing Joshua a lanyard. He clipped it on. Absurdly official. Guilty. What's the gig? She pointed to the lounge. Story Slam Prep. Cal's legacy event. Folks share coming out tales. Heartbreaks. Wins. You're the closer. Joshua's stomach flipped. Me? Nah. I'm the ghost. Mia's eyes narrowed. Fierce. Ghosts haunt. You're the plot twist. He prepped in the office, sketchbook open to the bridge drawing, penning notes, hooks of their origin, the betrayal's bruise, the electric undercurrent that never fully shorted. Mark poked his head in, toolbox in hand. Fixing the shelf Kel hated, always dumping books. Joshua nodded, watching him work, competent hands, laugh lines deepening with effort. No villain here, just a man piecing puzzles. Join the slam, Joshua asked. Mark paused, hammer mid-swing. If you go first. Deal struck. American pragmatism, tit for tat, vulnerability bartered. The slam kicked off at dusk. Folding chairs scraped into a semicircle under strung lights, coffee percolating strong. 30 souls. Kids with fresh piercings, elders with silver hair and silver tongues. A trans barista reciting Audre Lorde like scripture. Mia emceed, mic crackling with energy. We're here 'cause Caleb taught us. Stories save. Who's first? A boy, no older than 16. Stood, voice quivering but rising. Farm kid from Indiana. Dad's shotgun ultimatum after the homecoming kiss. Applause thundered as he sat, cheeks flushed triumph. Then a woman, 50s, on her wife's ALS fade, love as vigil, betrayal by biology. Joshua's turn crept closer, palms slick. Mark went before, clearing his throat like gravel in a tumbler. I'm Mark. Cal's. Detour. Chuckles rippled. He leaned in. Detour to a dead end. See, I was the straight guy who bent wrong. Thought I could love him quiet. No flags waving. But Cal? He burned bright, and I dimmed him. Betrayed the thunder in his veins for my comfort zone. Eyes on him. Joshua's included. Compassion. Not condemnation. Forgiveness? Working on it. For him. For me. Thanks to stories like these. He sat to whoops. Glancing Joshua's way, your move. Heart hammering. Joshua took the mic. Weight familiar from forgotten open mics. Joshua. Cal's first. Everything. Gasps hushed to reverence. He dove in. Voice steadying. The hook of their meet-cute. Frat Party 09. Caleb spilling IPA on Joshua's chucks. Apology sealed with a wink and dance with me. Klutz. Laughter warmed the room. The build. Late-night philosophy in the dorm. Caleb's poems scrawled on big dig napkins. Their first kiss under Harvard's elms. Rain pattering like applause. Electric, he said. The word a talisman. That's what we called it. The spark that shorted out doubts. Then the shadow, the drift. Mark's name unspoken but looming. Betrayal isn't always a knife. Sometimes it's a slow fade. Texts at 2 a.m. Excuses stacking like cordwood. I begged him to choose, and he chose fear. His dad's ghost. Society's side-eye. Walked out into a Boston blizzard, leaving me with the echo, silence thick, a few sniffles. 15 years. I vaulted it. Never spoke his name. Built a life of pixels and polite fucks. But the current hummed underground. He held up the sketchbook, pages fanning. Till this funeral yanked the cord. Cal's program. His notes revealed us raw. Not unbroken, but real. Climax crested as he circled back. The scattering, the center's pulse. Love's not linear. It's a river, bends, floods, dry spells. Cal betrayed me. Yeah. But in the end, he handed me the map back. Applause erupted. hugs pulling him down. Mia whispered, "Nailed it." Mark clapped his shoulder later. Quiet. "Proud of you." Thunder. Joshua exhaled. Unburdened. The room's energy a bomb. Post-slam. They spilled to the rooftop, fire pit crackling. Cityscape sprawling like a lover's limbs. Beers circulated. Stories looping casual. A kid's proposal gone viral. An elder's 80s raid survival. Joshua and Mark gravitated to the edge. Skyline twinkling, Sears Tower piercing clouds like ambition. "That took guts," Mark said. Joshua shrugged. "Or exhaustion." "Vaults get heavy." Mark's laugh rumbled. "Tell me about it." "After Cal, I dated a guy, firefighter, all heart. Crashed, 'cause I was still half haunting." Joshua nodded. Kinship budding. Seattle's got its share of haunts. But maybe. Time for exorcism. Lila joined. Marshmallows skewered on coat hangers. Group toast. Glasses raised, plastic. But clinking true. To Cal. To currents. Firelight danced shadows. Faces gilded. Joshua felt the shift. Betrayal alchemized. Not to gold but grit, the kind that built bridges. Talk turned personal. Mark admitting, "I pushed him out." Josh. "Toward you. Subconsciously. Knew you were endgame." Joshua's brow arched. "Endgame implies sequel." Mark's eyes twinkled. "Maybe epilogue." Night deepened. Stars sparse over light pollution. Joshua wandered down alone. Sketchbook under arm. Checking into a Loop Hotel Marriott blandness. But clean slate. Shower steam fogged the mirror. His reflection blurred. Lines softer. Eyes clearer. Text to his Seattle roommate. Extending trip. Loose ends. Reply pinged. "Get that dick, boss." Laugh barked. Raw. Bed swallowed him. Dreams vivid. Caleb dancing. Ashes to embers. Hand extended. Not in farewell. But join me. Morning brought coffee run. Intelligentsia. Beans roasted dark as regrets. Lila texted coordinates. Family brunch. No escaping. The diner was pure Americana. Formica counters. Hash browns crisp. Waitresses calling Han with Midwestern warmth. Harlan's filled a booth. Cousins. Aunts. Uncles with farmer tans fading under city grime. Joshua slid in beside Lila. Met with handshakes and Cal talked about you. Stories flowed with mimosas. Kid Cal stealing tractors. Teen Cal blasting Gaga in the barn. Coming out over pot roast. Broke Mama's heart. An uncle grunted. But he mended it fiercer. Joshua shared sparingly the pact. The electric, but it landed soft. Nods all around. Humanistic grace. No judgment. Just we're all cracked. Post-meal. They scattered to the Museum of Science and Industry. Cal's childhood haunt. U505 sub gleaming like buried treasure. Kids from the center tagged along. Turning exhibits to playgrounds. Tesla coils arcing blue. Mirrors multiplying laughs. Joshua lingered by the coal mine diorama. Mark sidling up. Reminds me of his farm phase. Dirt under nails. Dreams above. Joshua smiled. Missed the dirt. Seattle's all rain and reinvention. Conversation meandered to futures. Mark's contracting biz. Joshua's stalled portfolio. Show the sketches, Mark urged. Gallery night? Cal'd haunt you otherwise. Seed planted. Electric again. Evening found them at a blues bar, Kingston Mines. Amps humming low. Trio wailed of lost loves, harmonicas keening like souls. Joshua and Mark claimed a corner table, whiskey's sweating rings. To epilogues, Joshua toasted. Mark clinked, gaze holding. Or sequels, spark flickered, not thunder, but steady glow. Back at the hotel, buzz fading to buzzkill, Joshua pored over sketches, phone lighting face. Upload to a portfolio site, electric echoes for Cal. Submissions pinged, galleries in Portland, even Seattle. Betrayal's ghost, banished to frame. Sleep claimed him easy, river dreams lapping gentle. The third dawn broke golden over the loop, sunlight slanting through hotel blinds like fingers beckoning stay. Joshua packed slow, sketchbook last. This weight a talisman now, not tomb. Checkout brought Lila's call. Airport run? One last story. He agreed. The Chevy's engine purring north on the Dan Ryan. Billboards flashing vote yes on equality. Progress etched in vinyl. Lila slid into passenger. Thermos steaming. Cal's last letter to me. About you. She read soft. If Josh shows, tell him the betrayal was mine. But the love, ours. Scatter the guilt with the ashes. Joshua's eyes stung. Highway blurring. Did. O'Hare loomed. Terminals a frenzy of rolling suitcases and tearful goodbyes. Lila hugged fierce in the drop-off. Come back. Center's got a spot. Artist in queer silence. Joshua laughed. Tempting. Electric cities calling. She slipped him a keychain, tiny bridge silhouette. For the vaults. Gate 27 buzzed with boarding. Joshua settling window seat. Chicago shrinking below. Rivers forking like choices. Lakes gleaming vast. Sketchbook open. He sketched quick, them under the bridge. Not fractured but fused. Lines bold. Flight hummed west. Clouds parting to Rocky's teeth. Then Cascades green hush. Seattle greeted gray. Ever reliable rain misting the tarmac. Rental returned. Cab to Capitol Hill. Victorians sagging charming. Coffee shops spilling hipsters. His apartment waited. Whiskey the cat yowling judgment. Mail stack teetering. Unpack first. Urn empty but echo full. Programs fold softening. Email pinged. Gallery bite electric echoes intrigues. Show in spring? Joshua texted Mia. Accepted. Cal's haunting productively. Weeks blurred to routine laced electric. Designs by day. Sketches by night, series expanding. Betrayal's anatomy in charcoal strokes. Dates resumed. Tentative. Alex. A barista with Mark's easy laugh. No detours. Coffee turned walks, Discovery Park. Waves crashing like confessions. Baggage? Alex asked one dusk. Salish sea foaming. Joshua exhaled truth. Heavy, but unpacked. Alex's hand slipped into his. Current steady. No thunder, but warmth human scale. Mark texted sporadic. Kids miss the thunder. With center pics. Teens painting murals. Mia's grin wide. Joshua replied pics. Whiskey batting yarn. Seattle fog romanticized. Lila forwarded grants, your stories fundraise. Seed of return sprouted. Summer residency. Bridge building literal. Betrayal? Footnote now. Humanistic arc. Pain as plot. Propelling not paralyzing. Spring bloomed wet. Gallery night electric. Echoes walls alive with their ghosts. First kiss rain blurred. Packed picnic faded. Betrayal's alley stark. Crowd murmured. Collectors in slim jeans. Critics with notepads, queer elders nodding yes. Alex squeezed his hand at the door, pride swelling. Mark and Lila flew in, surprise crashing the after-party. Deep dish at Giordano's, laugh stacking like Jenga. To sequels, Mark toasted, eyes on Joshua soft. And epilogues that loop, Joshua flew back solo that fall. Residency key turning easy. Center thrummed. His studio a nook overlooking the river, easel by window. Bridge winking. Kids filtered in. Story slams with his hooks. Art classes birthing murals. Mia co-taught. Blue hair faded but fire undimmed. Evenings. Mark dropped by, beers on the roof. Blues from a portable speaker. Talk deepened. Mark's slow burn date with a teacher. Joshua's steady with Alex. Thunder finds shelter. Mark quipped one night, shoulders brushing. Joshua leaned in, testing, spark, not storm. Kiss tentative, then true electric, evolved. Caleb's birthday hit November, wind off the lake whipping scarves. Group gathered at the bridge, urn long gone, but stories fresh zines past, toasts to wanderers. Joshua read new, redemption's current, betrayal bent to bridge. Laughter, tears, the river carrying echoes. Lila hugged last. He'd say you nailed the landing. Joshua smiled, Mark's arm warm around waist. Ours now, years layered like city sediment. Joshua's shows touring coasts, center expanding to satellite spots, Pilsen pride pulsing national. Alex visited, roots twining, Mark wove in, trio unconventional but unbreakable. Betrayal, scar faded, story shared in slams. Humanistic hymn, love's not unbroken, but resilient American as reinvention, rivers rerouted. One dawn, Joshua stood bridge alone, sketchbook flipping to first page. Them, eternal. Wind whispered electric, and he whispered back, always. The current flowed on, carrying stories to sea.